Hey everyone, we're here in Krusevac again, where I live in my building, and I wanted to show you how easy it is to live here and why that's kind of a health concern for me because, as you can see, my grocery store is right here, Universal Export. It's a very good grocery store. It's not like a shop and go like you see in Belgrade. It's an actual full grocery store with a meat department, and it's relatively low priced. There's a casino, which, like I said, we don't use. There's a bank, Raiffeisen Bank here. So I bank there for personal and also for my business. It's probably one of the better banks for foreigners here in Serbia. There's an accounting firm. I'll put their link to their Facebook page in case you need an accountant for your company in Krusevac. Literally everything's around you, including an ATM machine. Raiffeisen does charge about 500 dinars for foreign cards, so I don't use them for withdrawals from my US cards. I use Eurobank, AIK, Attico Bank, the fat hamster bank. I use them. They just opened a new massage place here, and I haven't tried it out, but I will. There's a lot of professional services in this building, so you almost never have to leave this building. We're gonna go on a little walking tour to show you the town, and there's a whole bunch of cafes. There's Olive Tree, which is a good little restaurant. Arabica. I prefer Arabica for like outside seating if you're gonna have coffee or something. If you want to eat, Pizza Top is good. There's no cares in the world here in Krusevac. Everyone's out at a cafe. When people in America are at work, we're out cafeing. Your lifestyle will greatly improve if you leave America and you come and you live in Serbia. Ethnically, the Serbian population, like Japan, is kind of declining. So the government wants to welcome a lot of foreigners here. It's a wide open country. If you want to move from the US, you can so pretty easily. Some people, like for me, when I first came here, I was really intimidated by like Cyrillic or how do you do stuff here and how do you stay here. It's actually quite easy. You either buy a property, you get married, or you open a company and you come in on a corporate director residence permit. And then that's how you pay your taxes, is through your company as well. Getting all that set up, if you use like an agent in Belgrade, that's a company that sets this up for you, you'll probably pay 3,000 euros or more. I would recommend talk to Sandra at random.rs, Random Consulting. Her services are excellent. Sandra is the prime reason why I stayed in Serbia and why I could so easily. And she did it for, her quote was significantly below anyone else's. So she helped me open my company, legalize my lease with my landlord. She helped me with my virtual office for my company and give me a contract for that. She helped me get my residence permit. If you are moving to Serbia from the US or Canada or any other Western country, Australia, contact Sandra at random.rs, www.random.rs. I can tap to withdraw money from my American account because you usually see the tap to pay on the ATMs, but it never works. But Eurobank has just activated it, and it saved me because the person that relays my mail from America was sick and unable to DHL me my cards. My new cards for my bank, which expired at the end of this month. But what they were able to do is send me photos of the new card number, and I was able to put that into Apple Pay. And now I can withdraw cash at the ATM through Apple Pay at Eurobank. I also got really good customer service from Vladimir at the, it's a big branch on Terazari. Vladimir, if you're looking to open an account or something, go talk to him. They really helped me out when I was having trouble with my card, like a lot. Another way you can withdraw money if you're kind of stuck overseas, but you have a US checking account, is Remitly. The difference between Remitly and Wise is with Remitly, I can send money from my checking account directly to a money exchanger, and they give it to me in euros or dinars. It's your choice. And Remitly has Wise-like conversion fees, so it's relatively inexpensive to send money. It's about $100 for every 1,000 euros to get cash with just your passport or your ID. Western Union is another option. So if you're leaving the US, I recommend that you pre-set up before you have trouble overseas your checking accounts with for ACH with Western Union and also Remitly. And I recommend that you set up with Wise as well. All the links will be in the description of this video because I've had trouble overseas where my card didn't work for some reason. I was entering the wrong PIN, believe it or not. And I couldn't get money for my first 2 weeks for my ATM card here in Belgrade, but it was like no problem because I could log into Western Union and just Western Union myself money for my checking account. So that's why you hear all these horror stories, these foreigners having trouble in Bali or Thailand or even Serbia, and I think I haven't had a single horror story because I prevent horror stories like that. Another big complaint that foreigners have is bureaucracy from the government. And you hear that from the local people too. But I will attest, I have had no bureaucracy. I've experienced no bureaucracy here in Serbia. Whenever I go into a government office to do something, I had to go to the Serbian APR, which is the business registry, to update my Serbian identity number with my company. My Serbian person I went with thought, oh, this is going to be hell. But lo and behold, I had 3 people working on my problem because my problem was a little bit uncommon and unheard of, especially down at the smaller outpost here. It's not the main office like in Belgrade. So they didn't know right away, but they figured it out really fast before we left. And they had an answer, and they said the fee for updating it, and we did, and bring us back the receipt. And they said it'll be 10 days, but it really happened like 3 or 4 days. I don't know how they did it so fast because they have to ship the documents to Belgrade, but very good service from the government. Is surprisingly no problem. So this statue here is like a main staple here in Krusevac. That building there is empty. That's a huge Chinese store. Like the whole building on the second floor is a Chinese store. And what is a Chinese store? They sell things that you need for your home. Cookie jars, mugs, bowls. It's not like an IKEA. It's the next best thing, in my opinion. This is one of the main streets. There's all the bars in here, and there's more cafes up the street. It's a one-way street. It's not one way, but like it's one way for walking, so I'm not going to go up it. But if you're interested and you come to Krusevac, check it out. There's a bar at the end where all the hipsters hang out, and there's a new hotel being refurbished here. It's a happy little town. And as you can see, we've hit a lot of different places. We've hit banks, grocery stores. We've kiosks to get something to drink. We've hit the cell phone stores over there. So literally everything is within this city center, and it's literally 5 minutes away from where I live, or less. If you know where you're going and you're not lollygagging, it's less than 5 minutes. I live over here, kind of next to this this yellow building. That's where my apartment is, next to it. And then to do anything with the government, the court is there. And the main government building that I did my life update in Krusevac video in front of, all the little government offices are in there, except for the police. But if you have to deal with the government here, get your ID, you have to go to the police station, which is just down here. It's that white building down there. That's the police station. When I had to renew my visa, I just walked literally 5 minutes to the police station, and I went and renewed my residency permit for another year. My life here is almost too good to be true. I work from home, don't have to go more than 5 minutes for almost anything in the city, except the city pool. That's a 10-minute walk, maybe 15-minute walk. But still, I'm kind of glad when there is something farther out because, as you can see, I don't go anywhere. I just stay in this sector. There's a lot of good athletic facilities here in Serbia, especially in Belgrade. There's pools, there's gyms in every neighborhood. So you don't have to travel very far to go to a pool or go to a gym. You'll probably start out in Belgrade, but once you have acclimatized to living in Serbia and learned how to do stuff kind of on your own, you might want to move out. I recommend looking at Subotica, Niš, Krusevac, Pančevo, which is across the river from Belgrade. That's also a lower cost area, because the city of Belgrade city center is absurdly expensive, in my opinion. I don't want to pay €1,000 a month for an apartment in city center. I can live in Krusevac for €350, and then I can save that money and go on vacation 4 times a year to Greece if I want. Or you can do whatever you want with the extra money that you'll save living outside of Belgrade. So I recommend coming to Serbia, getting set up in Belgrade, do it for a year, and then start looking. They're trying to reduce the time that foreigners have to stay here to get permanent residence from 5 years to 3 years. And if they do that, maybe I'll get permanent residence next year, maybe not, we'll see. This is like the city of fountains, and they're quite good. There's a certain politician, I won't say who he is, but he grew up here, and this is his home city. And it's my opinion that this city center looks pretty good for Serbia. because of that politician. He takes very good care of the city. So if you know who you are, thank you. There's not a lot to do. There's cafes and there's restaurants, but other than that, there's a city pool and some gyms, and there's not much else. Even if you walk around, like, there's the graveyard over there and there's the hospital over here. You can only do that so many times. So it does get boring. Because of that, I work more. I push myself more. You know, like before I moved to Serbia, I was just this like nomad out there floating on a passive income of like, you know, $1,500 a month. I didn't really have much direction, and I didn't really want much direction. I just wanted to calm down from the rat race in the US. And I did that for 2 years. And then, you know what happened with the worldwide situation that hit us. And I went back to the US, and that was basically shit. So I just Googled. I was desperate. Serbia was the only country that would take me in as an American in August of 2020. I was just supposed to come here temporarily, but I loved the city of Belgrade, and I loved the people, and how I was treated is the reason why I stayed in Serbia. Is why I reached out to Sandra to help me get my my residency here, because I wanted to stay legally. I've heard of someone doing that for 6 years here, just continuous visa runs for like every 90 days. They would go out and come back in, and that was allowed, but that person could have probably had citizenship by now. Personally, I don't want to leave Serbia. I've only left Serbia in the last 3 years, a total of 4 days. I haven't had a reason to. I work online with my client. I live, you know, relatively inexpensively here in Krusevac. I mean, there's nothing much more you can ask for. If I want to travel, I can. I just don't. One of the complaints I have here in Serbia is, and if there's any politicians or government workers watching this video, my complaint of Serbia is the rail lines have not been maintained very well. The tracks are still there, and you don't have to do very much, you know, whatever, but the trains are disappearing. And buses, I don't like to travel on buses personally. Re-establishing the train links between the cities here in Serbia, because Belgrade is kind of at a bursting point with the realty market, because people will eventually venture out into the smaller areas. You don't want to be like a Russia. You have Moscow and St. Petersburg, and then you have like hordes of land of nothing. Kind of allow people to migrate out of Belgrade, but you want to also offer a quick and easy way to get back to Belgrade. That's not a bus with like no ventilation on it. The bus drivers, they keep the windows shut, and then you have, you know, maybe 100 people on a bus just breathing the air and no ventilation. It kind of gets uncomfortable. Sometimes I have headaches. With the new train from Belgrade to Novi Sad, it's probably the best train I've ever been on. You know, even Kuala Lumpur, their trains are excellent, but this one was even better. I mean, it's newer, obviously. So they are working on another segment of that to Budapest, I hear. And I would just say continue establishing those train links. Now, I will tell you, the thing that helped me the most, setting client expectations from the beginning, and also managing the project correctly. So if there's a problem, or I even think there's going to be a problem with one of my clients' projects when I'm talking to them over Zoom, I tell them that. And if I need to do a follow-up Zoom, I schedule it with them. I say, here's the problem I think we're going to have, and here's how I think I'm going to fix it, but maybe I've never done this exact thing before, so I'm going to do it, and hopefully it works out. And they're like, okay, don't work for $30 an hour if your client's in the US or any Western country, because that's just barely an employee wage. And remember, when you're a contractor, you're not your client's employee, so don't let them start treating you like an employee. I don't recommend their corporate communications tools. If they want to give you an email address, that's fine, but you have to set the expectation that if you're only working hourly for them at a high hourly wage, and they're only paying you for the hours worked, you're not going to be checking your company email all the time. Typically, these fountains you can always drink. It's clean water. You don't even need to buy water if you just have a water bottle in your backpack. So just maintain a water bottle, and if you're walking around Belgrade, look for those little fountains and just fill up. There's also pharmacies here, so you can get medication. There's an electronics store here, and this is only like 2 minutes away from where I live. Not even 5 minutes. There's a sneaker store, Buzz, quite expensive though. There's a gyros place, not my favorite. People are saying hello to us because they see us filming. And people, like, I don't know if you overheard that, but people are like very friendly. Like some kids try to say hi to me, but I was talking. I have that happen almost every time I film a video here in Serbia. If I'm just holding it in front of me and people see I'm vlogging, people want to interact with you because you're a foreigner. They're not closed off typically. I would say 98% of the people I've dealt with here are very open. They'll talk to you. They speak English very well, so don't be coming here talking like an alien like I did. Now, when you get out deep into the villages, those people don't typically always speak English. Sometimes you can still have a small conversation, and that's because they're primarily composed of like very old people that have worked in agriculture their whole life. And some people I've met in the villages have never left their village. I mean, they might come into town or something like that, but they really never left the area of Krusevac. I find that very interesting. If you move to Serbia, you won't regret it. If you just use it as a home base, what you can do is you can fly out to Berlin for 60 euros. You can fly to Corfu, Greece for 20 euros on Ryanair or Wizz Air. Now that's carry-on only, so you have to be selective of what you bring clothes-wise and shoes-wise, but where else can you have a European vacation every weekend if you want? If you live in the EU, it's much more expensive typically. Getting residence there is almost impossible now. The world is closing down even more so to American passports. So if you can come to Serbia and start earning your second citizenship by doing good things here in the country, you'll have visa-free access to China and Russia if you want. There's other countries that Serbia has visa-free access to, like in Africa, that the US does not. And sometimes your visa fees, even if you do need a visa, is significantly less for a Serbian passport than a US passport. In Africa, so if they see a US passport, they'll charge you a lot more for a visa or an entry than if you came in on a Serbian passport. So I would prefer, in my opinion, to travel on a Serbian passport than a US passport just for ideological reasons. Anyways, if the Serbian passport is the only passport that I have one day, say if I renounce my US citizenship, paying $50 here and there for even like 4 visas a year, that's $200, right? So that's a lot less expensive than having to have a U.S. accountant do all of your accounting every year for your U.S. taxes and your foreign bank accounts to the Treasury Department. You know, that's like $600 a year just for a nobody like me. A lot of people, when they hear that, and I don't know if I am going to renounce my U.S. citizenship or not, there's other ways around international taxes. If you have a spouse that you trust, that you're not married to, there's ways to have them open a company and you just do the work. And as long as you're not employed in America, then you don't legally own the company, if you know what I mean. I'm not talking about tax evasion or anything like that. I'm just saying if you come to Serbia and you meet someone that you really, really trust, they can open a company in their name and you just are employed by them. I can't say too much, but if you take care of the Serbs, they will take care of you. So this mall is abandoned, and there was a major fire due to the wiring at the Chinese store for their Christmas decorations. So this is the Krusevac Theater. Hopefully it's unaffected. It's a really old theater, so hopefully it looks like it's relatively unaffected from the fire and the water that was sprayed on the fire. They just refurbished the brick down here. It looks a lot better than it did. The Serbian government and the local governments are really spending the money wisely. They're not sending their entire country's wealth to Ukraine. If you leave the US for ideological reasons, it's very easy after a year or two of leaving the US. When you move to Serbia or you move to Thailand, it's not like you're going out in the middle of nowhere to a jungle town in the Amazon. They have electronic stores. They have everything that America has. Don't bring any kitchen appliances. Don't bring hair dryers. They don't work over here. Don't be buying all this junk before you leave America. I recommend that you sell everything, and I mean everything. And don't put your furniture, your boat, or a car in storage. Sell it. You won't be back. I guarantee you, you won't be back. Especially if you have $1,500 or more that's stable and reliable. Start today. Just get on Craigslist, get on OfferUp app in the US or Facebook Marketplace or all three, and post one major thing in your house per day. That's what I did when I left the US, and I was on a 30-day timeline to leave. And I literally just posted 1 or 2 major appliances in my house per day, and at the end of 5 days, pretty much everything that was for sale, and it sold. People have less money now, believe it or not. So when I went back to America, things didn't sell so well out of my storage. And now I have $130 storage per month burning a hole in my pocket. What they did, it started at $40 a month. I have to keep paying because it's more expensive to fly back to America and close it and clean it out than it is just to keep paying it. So don't make the mistake I made. You won't be back, I guarantee it. Once you discover how far $1,500 goes in other countries outside America. And in villages in Italy, $1,500 goes very far as well. And you can have a good life. The people in the Facebook groups, they say, or even on YouTube, they say, oh, how you live in Bali on $1,000 a month. But what they neglect to show you is how do you get visas and how expensive it is to do visa runs from Bali or Thailand. You can only do 2 land border entries per year, and no one mentions that. If you come here to Serbia, I would have at least $1,500 a month in solid income that's reliable. $2,000 would probably be better, especially when you're first getting set up. You know, you have to pay a deposit on an apartment, you have to have someone open a company for you, you have to get bank accounts, and all that money, all that costs. So, but once you're set up here, you can live on about $1,500 a month here in Serbia, like you lived in America. The same life. Don't listen to the people that say you can do on $800 a month. If you come here and you get married, then yes, you can live here extremely cheap. Your marriage is your visa. It's not like you have to get an accountant and an attorney and a consultant to help you run your company. I live here on about $1,500 a month, and that's sparing no expense. And that includes my expenses back in America. For example, my storage. It includes running my company, the professional consulting fees for the people that do my accounting and my taxes and everything. So it's relatively low priced here to run a company and stay here. So they have figurines here of famous actors or even princes in Belgrade. They have big statues. And as you recall, after 2020, those started getting torn down in America. But here in Serbia, that stuff still exists. The history still exists. They're not erasing your history here in Serbia. And that's why I don't ever want to go back to America. I don't even want to visit America. If you want to go have lunch in Las Vegas, it's like $60 per person now. It's crazy. Here in Serbia, if you want to go have lunch, it's like $6 per person. And that's for a nice lunch, okay, at Pizza Top, which I recommend. Or even if you go to Olive Tree, or even if you go to a fancy restaurant here, like Bagala, maybe $10 for a meal per person, maybe. It's typically less than that, about $7. Let's say from $7 to $10 for a meal per person, and then there's drinks. You might spend $12 to $15 per person for a nice dinner at one of the nicest restaurants here in Krusevac. That's why the cost of living here makes sense. So if you're kind of barely making it as a digital nomad in Belgrade because your landlord tripled your rent or something like that, just leave. Just leave. There's nothing holding you in Belgrade. So here, the way I got my apartment here in Serbia, my first one in Belgrade, I saw it on Hello Oglasi. I didn't think my landlord spoke any English. And they were like, you know, I speak English. I'm like, oh, you do? And I called him immediately. Don't be intimidated of, like, if there's like a little old lady landlord that's like 90 years old and she's your landlord in Krusevac, you can communicate with her. Like, it's best if you bring a Serbian friend that translates. But if you don't have that, I mean, you can grab someone off the street probably, like a kid, and offer him like 1,000 dinar. That's $10. That's like big money here. Be creative when you come to Serbia. Don't rely on crutches like Airbnb or Booking.com. That's good if you come here and you want to stay 30 days only. All the Russians came here and all the Ukrainians came here, and it created a kind of a housing crisis. The Facebook groups can be okay to get apartments. The problem with them is that they're filled with people that know that foreigners come here loaded with money, and the prices that you see are not the real prices on them. So look at the local websites, and I'll put some of them at the description of this video. Four Walls, it's 4zida.com is a good one. Hello Oglasi is or Kupu Pradom is another one as well. And it's best to check all three every day and then sort it by the date, because what happens is landlords will post their apartment as a private person, and then they'll get calls constantly from agents saying, hey, why don't you let me handle all the calls? And they'll call them every day, or they'll have friends call them every day, and they'll just wear these landlords down, and then they charge a 50% fee to each party, the renter and the landlord, to get someone in there. And all they do is they post an ad on the same website as the landlord did, and they field the calls. So then you also have to pay the first month's rent and then the deposit. So it can add up, you know, it can add up. Like when I came here to Serbia to get an apartment with no credit check, it was 700 euros moved in. 350 euro first month's rent, 350 euro deposit. Now for the same apartment, it's like 1,400 or 1,500 euros or more. There's different ways to find apartments here. A lot of the apartments are unrenovated. There's some work to be done on the inside of them, and if they're renovated, they're like very expensive. Sometimes not. You'll be surprised, but I've had like good luck here in Serbia finding apartments. So if you just search every day, if you search once for an apartment and you're like, oh, this is crap, or didn't work out this day, and you never go back, you will never find an apartment. I hope this video has been helpful. I'll see you in the next video. Ciao.